good.
All right, guys, back again for episode 11. We got a very special guest, Philly Inquirer's own Damichael Cole. Damichael, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
All
Thanks
right,
so
cool,
much.
perfect. So if you can give us a little bit of an intro, because some of our followers not only follow fight talk and stuff, but they also potentially want to get into like sports reporting and all. So if you could tell us about your background, where you went to school, and some of your internships and all too.
Yeah, man, I'm born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. So, you probably wonder how a guy from down south ended up here in Philly. But man, it was a quick journey, but a lot of stops in between, a lot of internships. I graduated college May of 2019, but while I was in college, I did local internships in Memphis where I, covered the Memphis Grizzlies and things like that. And then in college, you're just trying to get in where you fit in. So I was a student reporter on our on the student newspaper staff, and I also was a local reporter at. We had around 3 newspapers in just surrounding around. You know how you have all the surrounding counties and stuff like that. So I worked at those little small newspapers, built up some nice work, and then that turned into an internship with Sports Journalism Institute when I graduated. Sports Journalism Institute is a opportunity for like young women and minority young men, and it helps them, get a leg up in the sports media industry. And I mean, it's some of the best, some of the biggest guys out there right now at ESPN, The Athletic, Yahoo Sports, etc. have come from SJI. So I was selected to be a part of that program, and that program turned into an opportunity at Sports Illustrated. So last summer, right after I graduated in 2019, I went to SJI's boot camp, which was a week at Walter Cronkite, which is at the University, Arizona State University.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for a week. Nice, boot camp it was great. And then left there, went to Sports Illustrated, spent the whole summer at Sports Illustrated. So I met a lot of the guys there. The boxing guy, Chris Mannix. I did some things for him. Did some things for him too there as well. But that's pretty much the journey. And from there, I got to the Inquirer 2 months later. And it was just a thing of relationships. And, they say, it's not always how good you are. A lot of how far you go really depends on, the relationships you form and things like that. And I think that really happened for me because when I was at the SJI boot camp, one of the people over the camp is a vice president at ESPN. And he was the one that told, the people at the Inquirer, they were looking for a young sports reporter. And he was like, I got a guy for you. And, just off the strength, he's the vice president at ESPN.
Right. So
the strength of his word is pretty strong. So he put in a good word for me. They're like, we don't need to hear anything else. And, I flew up to Philly, first time ever up north. So it was my first time up north actually was New York City in the summer. But it was my first time, I guess, settling up here. And it's been a nice experience, man. It's been a nice experience.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, because I come from a sports background too. So I graduated from Temple in the sport tourism hospitality management. So like I've had a crazy resume too, where I've worked with the Philadelphia 76ers, the Philadelphia Union, and then my last was the Trenton Thunder, the Yankees affiliate. Yeah, so that's really cool to hear about your journey and where it took you and all. That's really cool.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. You try to take advantage of all those little opportunities that you can get, especially in college, man. I was just like, anything that was open, I'm trying to put it on that resume and, make it look good, try to stand out any way I can. So, yeah.
Of course.
Awesome. One of my best friends actually is in journalism. He graduated from Temple, Rich Flanagan, and he writes for all like the local.
We follow each other. Yeah. I keep up with his work. I keep up with his work. We follow each other on Twitter and stuff. So we haven't formally met, at any games or anything yet. But yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah, I'm sure he's familiar with me.
He was at my wedding. He's a really good friend of mine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, cool. So now we're going to get into some of the boxing stuff, of course. So my first one I got for you, I'm really hoping it's got a lot of potential, but what are some of the fights or the hype ups that you're really looking forward to in the boxing world this year?
And I'm glad you put hype ups on the end of that because,
Yes.
I mean, we talk a lot about, what we want to see, and a lot of these things just fall, they never fall through. But man, I mean, this year has so much potential, how boxing hasn't had those big mega fights as of late, in the post Floyd Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, we still have Manny Pacquiao, who's a very big draw, but still, it's not the same. But there's so many young stars now. I mean, people love Ryan, people love Tank. T.O.'s profile just skyrocketed, after that last fight. So there's so much potential this year. But I mean, just to answer your question, man, I wanna see those 4 young cats, and I know we're gonna get to it a little bit more, but man, I wanna see T.O., maybe T.O. and Devin, and Ryan and Tank is near the top of my list. I mean, just off of it's been almost 2 years worth of talk now. Like, let's make it happen. I mean, let's make it happen at this point. And then, there's the other, side story to that when you're gonna have Mayweather and De La Hoya, involved if that happens. And we all know, those two they're not friends.
No.
They're not friends. So man, I'm excited for that. Of course, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. I mean, heavyweight boxing is what made boxing what it is.
Yep.
And we need that fight. We need it. And I mean, Fury. This is my opinion though. Neither Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder fight was really that entertaining. Besides the one knockdown, it was like, but neither of those fights really were a classic heavyweight fight. Like I think Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, I feel like they can both, hit each other. Wilder wasn't really hitting Fury, but I feel like these two can hit each other, and they both pack a punch. I mean, that should be really good. But yeah, those and those, and of course, I mean, we can talk about the welterweight division all day long. That's, in my opinion, the strongest division in boxing. I mean, 147, it's loaded. It's loaded.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you 100%. The welterweight is unbelievable. I mean, like, it's crazy how like Spence and Crawford are at like probably the peaks of their career, but they still want that fight with Manny Pacquiao, which is nuts. But you know what? I mean, it's all about legacy and all. And Keith one time Thurman had to learn the hard way. He had thought that he was going to knock him down, and he wound up getting knocked down himself in the first round. But yeah, it's just crazy how they all want to smoke from Pacquiao. But to go back to your lightweight division, like, if we could get it back to the 80s where it was like Marvin Hagler, Robert Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, where these kids, obviously they wish to have a record like those guys, but if we could get them not even worried about their O at the end of their record and get them in the ring, it's going to be a hell of a 2021 for sure.
Man, yeah. It's the post-Floyd Mayweather era effect in terms of not just, what he did a lot of, I love everything that Floyd Mayweather did for boxing, in terms of just helping the sport. But everyone wants that. I mean, you just said it, that pretty O on the record. And I mean, once upon a time, it was, that's the number one contender. Okay, that's who I want to fight. Oh, that's the guy that you said that's the guy that's gonna beat me. Okay, well, let's settle that right now. Now it's like, if I fight the number one guy and the number 3 guy, I'll make the same amount of money. So I'll just fight the number 3 guy. It's changed up some in that way. It's more, that business perspective. And I mean, the sport can really, get its juice back if we get that. I mean, we get some of those young lightweights just going at each other.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the UFC has taken over boxing, right?
And I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Because the best fighters in the world in the UFC, they fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
Boxing, it used to be that way. Now it's not, right? It's more of like a business, like you said.
Yeah.
In order for boxing to come back at that level again, that makes people want to watch, like the casual fan want to watch, the best fighters in the world have to fight each other.
And to your point, just if you put it in UFC terms, look at like a guy like Daniel Cormier. You think he would have fought John Jones again, like if he was a boxer?
Yeah, no way.
No way. What? Why would I fight him? No, it's completely different. Yeah,
absolutely.
Of course.
Yep.
Okay. And then my last few that I have, of course, it's about the Philly fighters here. Like Philly boxing starting to get its juice and flow again. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of prospects coming up and all too. But I did want to get your analysis and thoughts between Danny versus Earl. What did you take out of that fight?
Man, honestly, I just expected a little bit more aggression from Danny Garcia. I talked to him before that fight maybe 3 or 4 times, and each time I got the sense that Danny's gonna come out swinging more. The talk was all about the crash and things like that. How would it be the same Spence and all of that, and the typical person, just the average boxing fan, I guess, was thinking, well, if that's the case, he hasn't fought in over a year, why don't you just come out and attack him early? And, so, by the 3rd or 4th round, he'll have a feel for the fight. You come out and attack him early, you can change the whole, the way the whole fight goes. And Danny really didn't do that. So in the 1st, 2nd round, I'm thinking, man, he's playing around, and then Spence, you saw it after about the 5th round, Spence just started to take over. It was early on, it looked like, okay, this is interesting, but Spence may be winning, but then later on it was no doubt about it. So I expected more aggression from him in that fight, but it didn't happen. And granted, that's not his style, but when you're fighting a guy like Spence, you switch some things up, you do some things differently, to get that win.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he literally fought a Danny Swift fight where he waits for that counter to throw that hard overhand left, but Earl was way too smart, and Earl really impressed me how he didn't look like a guy that was out of the ring for almost 18 months. He looked like he was fresh. Like, it was crazy how really impressive he was and all.
Yeah, I feel like I feel as if Danny had way more pressure on him than Earl Spence. Like, Earl Spence could have took an L that night by decision, but they would have been like, oh, it's because he's not the same from the car wreck.
Right. Yeah.
And Danny takes the L, and everyone's like, maybe he has to get out of that division now. Maybe he's out of his prime.
I could see him moving up probably to 154, though.
Who's
I could see him. That's also a tough one, too, with, like, Charlo and all.
154 is I would say 154 is maybe the 3rd best division. Like, 154 is really good, too. And I've talked with, some other boxers about this, too. A lot of guys don't, even though, Angel and Danny talk a lot about it. Like, yeah, we can move up to 154, but I talked to some boxers in the past, and they're like, yeah, I don't see Danny at 154. So,
I think maybe because he like admitted, but like he did have a lot of ring rust against Ivan back in January 2019, where he said that he was eating good and stuff, where he was having a tough time making 147, but he looked phenomenal at the weigh-ins against Earl. But that's why, like, I thought after the Ivan fight, okay, well then he'll either get his Pacquiao or Spence or maybe Crawford fight here, and then I'll move up to 154. But yeah, 154 is pretty dangerous with Hurd, Charlo, even J. Rock Williams is there too. But I know that he wouldn't fight J. Rock anyway. But yeah, there's no way.
Yeah, have you ever talked with the new Ray Robinson?
I haven't. I talked with one of his associates, but I hadn't talked to him. No.
Yeah, he would probably love to talk to you, because I was over his house for the Danny versus Earl fight, and he is in a weird place at 147, because he's seen as more of like a risk, in my belief, where like if you beat him, you were supposed to beat him, but if you lose, listen, maybe you weren't as good as everyone thought you were. But he doesn't know if he's going to move up. He doesn't know, because he gets denied a lot. You know what I mean? And a lot of young fighters will fight, but he's only fighting them for, the right paycheck. Right? And at this point in his career,
That's a good point. Yeah, it's a few guys at 147 like that. I've talked with. Even some younger guys. Boots, Jerron Ennis is another good example. It's. He people say, oh, he's not fighting anyone, but look,
nobody wants him. It's crazy.
If you're the top guy, like you just said, if I lose to him, you just lost to this young dude who hasn't even fought anyone yet. But if you win, oh, we're not. I mean, you were supposed to be him. He's 23.
Right.
He didn't fought anyone like. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That actually leads to my next question for you. So I think this is going to be a really, really good year for Boots. So what's your prediction? Do you think he'll get a title shot at the end of the year, or do you think we'll see like maybe a Virgil Ortiz, which would be really appetizing for the welterweight division? That would be really nice to see.
Man, you almost made me crack a smile there. I get excited when we talk about two young guys.
Yeah.
Clashing, because that's what that's what boxing should be. It should be, these young guys fighting, and then maybe 2 or 3 years from now you get a Ortiz in his 2, and then maybe in their 30s there's a 3. Like, just form those rivalries and things like that. But I think it's going to be a big year for him. Maybe not. I just can't see a championship. So I think that last fight really delayed, that really delayed his plans, so to speak, because at first I was thinking he get that last one, then he get one of the top contenders and put himself into conversation. And now, he's the reports are out there that he's going to fight Sergi.
Yes.
Yep, he's going to fight Sergi, and I believe it'll be April or May. And if that goes through, gets finalized, and becomes official or whatever, that's going to be a really big one. So now, instead of in May, I thought he'd be getting ready to fight one of those top contenders, maybe closer to like Ugas or Thurman,
Yep.
in that range. But now those guys, I feel like, will be the next shot after this one. So I'm thinking next year, early next year. But he has to be impressive in his next fight. I mean, Sergi's a bad boy. If you watch that Mikey Garcia fight, I used to tell a lot of people, man, he damaged Garcia even worse than Spence did.
He did, yeah. He did.
He cut him up pretty good. So if Ennis can, keep that, well, the knockout streak is technically over now. I don't like that rule. But
I know, it's dumb.
Yeah, but if he can, get back to, if he knocks this guy out in less than 8 rounds like he's done these other opponents, then that, that'll skyrocket his profile even more. But I think it's going to be a big year for him. I don't see him losing,
Yeah,
at all. I don't see him losing this year. It's just when he's going to get that shot, and I think this is a great step. If that fight happens in April or May, more than likely he'll get a probably, September, October shot. Mm-hmm. After that, and it'll be early next year. I'm thinking early next year is when that big title shot will come.
All right. And then my last one for the Philly fighters. Who do you like Saturday night? I'm so excited this is finally happening. It was supposed to happen in August, of course. Steven tested positive Wednesday of fight night, because I'll never forget, because I was in Wildwood and I was like telling people that we need to get the hell out of here by Saturday night so I could be at home watching that fight. But what do you think of Scooter versus Angelo Leo?
Man, it's tough, honestly. And when I say it's tough, usually I think pretty much every fight that I've covered with the Philly fighters so far, besides Danny Garcia Spence, that was the first one that I didn't pick a Philly fighter. This one is giving me those type vibes, man. Angelo's impressive.
Yeah.
He ran through Tremaine Williams. He just ran through Tremaine Williams, and Stephen Fulton, is good too. He's really good. Like there's no doubt about it. But as you've seen, he's gotten hit. He's gotten hit before. He's gotten hit hard, and if Angelo hits him hard like some of those guys do, that changes the trajectory of this fight, because this dude is in a completely different, category than those other fighters that he's fought against. So being that, we've seen Fulton get hit a lot more than we've seen Angelo get hit. And Angelo just dominated Tremaine. It's hard for me to pick against Stephen Fulton because I know, just the way he's wired, he has that nobody can beat me, mentality. He's confident in himself, and it was interesting because I talked with him a couple days ago, and I was like, you're not sounding like usual. You're not saying, I'm going to do this to him. I'm going to do that to him. I was like, what's different? And he was like, man, I just want you guys to see this time, because I'd rather show you, this time around. So a more mature approach, you know, to the fight for him. But man, it's hard for me to pick against Angelo in this one. I just think, you know, it's two ways to look at it. You know, you can say Fulton's been battle tested more, or you can say he's playing with fire. You know, he's been hit, but you know, this might be the one guy who those hits, you know, will really, you know, impact, you know, the result in the fight.
Yeah, like their fight styles are absolutely incredible. It's like probably never been seen because usually you'll fight a guy that's aggressive and you'll fight another guy that's a counter, but Angelo will go toe to toe with you, body. Steven's got the quick hands where he'll go bop bop, and then he'll put his hands up. Angelo doesn't keep his hands over his head, so he'll be taking a lot of jabs and stuff on the right and left eye. But I honestly cannot predict a winner. I'm gonna be literally an emotional wreck because we've actually became friendly with Angelo, so he has sent us some swag and stuff. I know. But like I cannot predict the winner though. I know this is a huge violation.
Typical Philly fan, man.
That's tough, man. That's tough.
I know. Yeah. It's just so tough to choose, and especially after the way Angelo adjusted it in the third round, how he figured out the southpaw. I mean, could you imagine going into a fight and then Wednesday you find out that you're going from orthodox to southpaw? That's crazy.
Everything.
Yeah. So I got two more fun questions with you, and this is awesome since you're you know, new to Philly and all. I mean, like a little over a year. But tell us your favorite food spot in Philly to eat.
Woo, man.
I know.
You know, it's tough. You know, it's. I mean, I've really just, you know, I've everywhere that I've went, haven't had too many bad experiences. I mean, it's a lot of spots. I mean, the cheesesteaks, you know, I wasn't really a cheesesteak person before I came to Philly. The cheesesteak started rubbing off on me, so now I'm in South Philly on 2nd Street going here and going there. I mean, and you know, that's not even, you know, I've only been here a year. How do I, you know, memorize these places and whatnot? But, man, I have to, it's got to be one of the cheesesteak spots. Ishkabibbles,
okay.
Ishkabibbles, maybe let's see, Ishkabibbles, maybe Pat's, okay.
Well, actually, I know for like a Philly native, like someone like Nick will be triggered because we have you like Geno's, Pat's, and Tony Luke's as like the #1 tourist spots. So, like we like to hear if it's like Steve Steaks or something like that, or like Jim's.
Okay.
Yeah, we all gotta hang out.
I forgot one. I forgot one, but I can't think of the name right now. But this one probably was my favorite one. Before Ishkabibbles. It's
is it Max's?
That's it, Max's.
Max's by a temple, yeah. Really good steak.
I never had that, to be honest.
Yeah, really good. Really good.
I had a lot of cheesesteak places. I never heard that, but that's like you're like the 4th or 5th person I ever heard say that.
Yeah.
I'm like a cheesesteak connoisseur, you know what I mean?
Oh, hey, send a couple more. I mean, I've only been to about 4 or 5 at this point. So.
Yeah, well, I have to have you venture up to us in up in Northeast Philly. Steve's Steaks is really good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Nick. You can answer your ask questions now. I'm all done.
We did an interview. I'm more of like the UFC guy, so like I don't know if you follow UFC or anything like that, but
decently. I'm boxing through and through, but UFC, you know, when I was younger, biggest Anderson Silva fan you could think of, man. But when he broke his leg,
oh, that was nasty.
That hurt me. Same thing.
That hurt me, and now, you know, it's like, you know, I love John Jones, but it's like he keeps letting me down, you know.
I know.
It's hard, man, you know. But I'm, you know, like Connor. I like Connor, but then I'm done. Then he comes back. You know, they play with my emotions a little bit more than the boxing guys.
So we had an interview with a heavyweight. I won't even call him prospect anymore, but he's from Northeast Philly, Chris Dawkins. He's also a Philadelphia police officer. So he's fighting the top 10 guy in the world at heavyweight in the UFC on February 20th, and he promised us Steve Stakes. So now that we have you on, I said, hey, maybe you can get a write up in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Come join us for Steve Stakes with Chris Dawkins after his win on February 20th.
Yeah, Chris Dawkins, and you say he's going to be fighting the top 10. Man,
yeah, which is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, he has. What does he have? 2 or 3 wins in the UFC, all by devastating knockout.
Yeah, two first-round knockouts. Yeah.
And heavyweight division in UFC is very easy to get in the top 15 as long as you put on like great performances, right? Because like they're always knocking people out, and he's been doing it in devastating fashion, being the underdog, and just destroying these dudes. And now he has a top 10 guy. He's fighting really like a grappler and a big jiu-jitsu guy. Mm-hmm. I think he gets them out of there quick.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It's the UFC. It's a fight game. It's always unpredictable, to be honest.
Yeah, hey man, it's noted. Chris Dawkins.
Yeah. But he's also phenomenal to talk to. Like you would have never think that he was a police officer because of how like awesome his personality is. It's just he's just so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. So we got a big fight this weekend.
Yeah, buddy.
Conor's back. He's fighting Dustin Poirier again for the second time, 6 years later. Or 8 years later, however long it's been. It's been a while.
That's crazy how much time flies.
And then we have the co-main event in a weight division that's probably the best division in UFC right now, the 155-pound lightweight division. So you got the co-main event. Michael Chandler is coming over from Bellator, making his UFC debut against Dan Hooker, and then Poirier versus Conor 2. I can't wait for this weekend, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm excited myself. I mean, anytime Conor, steps in the ring, it's I mean the octagon, it's exciting to watch. And then Dustin's no scrub. I mean, he's not fighting the scrub here. Dustin has some really good wins, to his resume. But I mean Conor, he's the big ticket. He's who we want to see. He's who everyone's paying to watch. So I just want to see how he's gonna look, after the layoff, retirement, whatever you want to call it. But man, I'm excited to watch that one. I definitely want to see what Conor looks like, because I mean this, now with Khabib, leaving, there's some potential there. Some potential
right.
To take it.
Yeah, so like when Conor said it best. He's really good at talking, obviously, but but again, I'm gonna get back to that point. But Dustin, after that loss, he's been on like holy hell, man! Like that, like rejuvenated him. Like he's been knocking people out. His stand-up's on point. His everything's on point, and his only loss I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is to Khabib.
Yeah.
And it's like at 155, and he's been stopping everybody. Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, Dan Hooker. He's all these guys can't stand with him. Now you got Conor, who's known for his stand-up, and
Conor's a lot. Now I may be wrong. Conor's a lot bigger than Dustin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not. What do you mean? Like height-wise?
No, just like bigger.
Yeah, I would say so.
Say so. Yeah.
And
so,
I mean, that's you think that's going to factor in?
I think what's going to factor in. I mean, he's always talking about like. He said 60 seconds, he's going to get him out of there. But then he, like, retracts his words a little bit, saying, I hope it's a war, because in 2020, he spent a total of 40 seconds in the octagon. Dustin Poirier spent however long he was. You know what I mean? He went 5 rounds with Dustin Poirier, a few rounds with Gaethje, all this stuff. You know what I mean? So I think ring rust is a real thing. But when Conor fought Cowboy, he was coming off a long-time leave too, because he had that whole, he had a lot of things going on with, because he wanted to fight more in 2020. But Dana, they got into
Cowboy wasn't on Dustin's level.
Nah,
what
not
is
at all.
Cowboy's not on the level of Dustin.
Oh, absolutely not. I agree with you 100%. But the only reason they were shocked at that 40-second finish of Cowboy was that Cowboy's like kind of durable, and you thought he was going to be able to make it through more than one round, more than 1 minute. but he got him out of there. I think this fight is going to be totally different than the first one, obviously.
Wow.
But I still think it ends the same way.
What?
By a finish.
Okay, gotcha.
But I think when I think of stand-up in the UFC, you think of the guys that are the best stand-up. Like you think of the Conor McGregor's. Like his boxing's so on point, And
right.
even people say, "Oh, well, you just got to take him down." Well, it took 4 rounds for Khabib to beat him.
Yeah.
And that was like he was drinking at the press conferences. He was drinking his proper 12 hours whiskey. Was he really focused? So like, I love seeing like a Conor McGregor focused, right? And I'm not like a Conor McGregor fan, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just like him. He's so good for the sport. He transcended the sport, So I like seeing him focused, and I like hearing what he's saying, that he wants to do what he did to the featherweight division to the 155-pound division. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But his mind changes every day. He's talking about fighting Manny Pacquiao this year. You know what I mean? So,
man, yeah, it's that whole combat fighting is changing. it's changing a lot. We got Floyd Mayweather about to fight a YouTuber.
Oh,
so,
that was my next question.
Can't stand that.
What was that?
What are your thoughts about YouTubers and the whole boxing world?
Man, I try to put myself in those shoes, and I say, if they're gonna pay, I'm gonna do it. It's that simple at the end of the day. And you have those, in every sport, you have those people who are traditionalists saying this is bad for our sport. It makes our sport look, this or that. But I disagree, in terms of, you're bringing in a fresher audience. You're bringing in newer faces. You're bringing in people off of YouTube. You're bringing in, those people, while also, you're going to have your typical boxing fans that'll tune in as well. I'm all for it. If it's good for the sport, if we're getting good fights, that first Paul Robinson fight, people, I don't know what the general thought on the fight is, but people like seeing knockouts, and that, so just getting to see that, even though the Tyson fight, didn't really give you that flair in terms of the big hits and like people wanted to see or whatnot. But at the end of the day, YouTubers are going to get hit because they don't have the technicality to be great defensive fighters. You develop that, but they're going to get hit, and people want to see people get hit. So I think it's good for casuals, for people to come into the sport. It's a very progressive thing. I'm all for it, except this Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul one is gonna be ugly, y'all.
For sure. You are not lying, man. To be honest, I
think he'll probably carry him for like a couple rounds and then wind up knocking out Paul. Probably. I think he'll carry him to maybe the third or fourth.
I agree, because it'll be too easy to just walk right up to him and just get it over with.
Right. Yeah.
And it's crazy because if you think about it, like we just said, with Floyd Mayweather, he's not going to turn down an opportunity to make probably $5-10 million, maybe even more than that, from this fight. And then again, I remember when Floyd was getting ready to fight Conor, we just talked about, how good of a striker Conor McGregor is. But in that fight, people were saying, will Conor hit Floyd? Like, will he land? And, he landed a couple shots in that fight. But if we were questioning whether Conor, who's one of the best, fighters in the UFC, will hit him, a YouTuber who's only had 2 fights, he might not land a punch for real. Like, it might just be little taps on the jaw with him.
Right. Yeah, exactly, dude. It's just a crazy world right now. But listen, at the end of the day, the best boxers in the world should fight the best boxers in the world. Bring this fan base back. And listen, it's an exciting time for boxing and the UFC. So I love it. I wish we had more time, man, because I would totally get into this whole Eagles rundown.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we got, Joe. How much time we got?
So we got 4 minutes left if you want to throw a bird's question.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
All right. So your first thoughts about Nick, what's his last name?
Sirianni,
that's right. Guy has great first name, by the way.
I wonder why you think that. But my first thought was they're keeping it in the family. I mean, that as soon as I saw it, I mean, it's one big fat Andy Reid tree. You know, you go from Andy Reid, you hire his guy, and Doug Peterson. Then, you know, Doug Peterson's guy was Frank, you know, head coach of the Colts. And it's like, well, you know, we can't get Frank right now. He just had a really good season with the Colts, and they got something going over there. So let's go get his offensive coordinator. So, you know, there was should, you know, Eric Bieniemy, you know, be the guy. But they're keeping it in the family, which the one thing you can say that will do is it'll make for an easier transition for the players and whatnot. But I don't know, man. He's never called plays. He's a young guy, which has been good lately for the league. These young guys, I mean, Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, Shannon Kyle Shanahan.
Even you think about
Vrabel too.
Vrabel, yeah.
Even think about Mike Tomlin. He was a very young coach for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, when he came
in,
exactly.
it feels like he's been there for 30 years.
Yeah. Right. Young guys are taking over, man. So I'm excited to see, you know, what he brings, but it's a Carson. Let's call it what it is, man. It's for Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. So, you know, a lot of people saying, oh, they want to see Jalen Hurts to keep starting. Man, this is a business decision in terms of we're paying this guy over $100 million. We need to get this right with him because he's making so much money, and we're not about to pay a guy $100 million to be a backup.
Right.
We need to fix this. Let's go get a guy who, you know, Frank was the offensive coordinator when Carson Wentz was, you know, an MVP for him. Let's go get the guy under him. Maybe he can get Carson Wentz back to that form. So
and also it would have been a very expensive cut because it would have been a $59 million cut, and then you could at least get like maybe a first rounder or two maybe for him. But
they would have had to trade him if getting rid of him was the idea. And you know, the reports are, you know, Peterson loved Hurts. Jalen Hurts is Peterson's guy. Jeffrey Lurie, he loves Wentz. You know, obviously Jeffrey Lurie is the one who, you know, has more to do with the salary cap situation and all of that. So I wonder why. But yeah, it's definitely more of a business decision is what I think it is. It's definitely a business decision.
I agree 100%. So, but again, we'll see. I mean, Doug Peterson was brought here, and he got so much hate from everywhere. You know, he's the worst coaching hire ever. You know, he went to the Super Bowl, and we'll see. You never know. A 39-year-old guy coming in, you know, maybe he can turn this thing around. Maybe he can turn Carson Wentz around. I mean, Carson Wentz was phenomenal before the LA Rams game when he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody just loses that. I don't know. Maybe it's the case of the yips. Who knows?
I agree.
But Damichael, we appreciate you coming on, man. Keep up the great work. I'll let Rich know we shouted him out today.
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you again. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we get to see you at maybe a club boxing show if you wind up covering something. Yeah, for sure. Usually if it's at 2300 or around there, I'll be there. Okay, cool, perfect. All right, awesome.
Or at Steve's Steaks after Chris Dawkins wins.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan, man. Sounds like a plan.
All right, Damichael, we appreciate it.
All right, cool. Thank you so much. All right.